There are some people in the room who know this and who share my love of all things zombies. When the whole zombie phenomenon came out, I didn't really think it had legs. And yet it's still going on. We've got more zombie shows seemingly than ever. And I thought about this. What does it say about our culture? Now, I'll tell you why I watch them, and I know that's why others watch them. They all have something in common. They're actually not about zombies. They're about how humanity changes because of the end of the world. It's not just the zombies' lives that become meaningless, but everyone's life, except your own. My favorite series, which finished, is called The Walking Dead. And there was one scene I'll never forget. It's in the first episode. This guy, Sheriff Rick Grimes, for those who know it, you'll understand. For those who don't, just come along the ride with me. Bear with me for a minute while, So this guy, Rick Grimes, he wakes up. He's a sheriff. He wakes up in a hospital in Atlanta from a coma. And he looks around, and the world is completely different. I mean, imagine if you wake up in a coma and there's a zombie apocalypse. And in one of the first scenes, he's cornered by a zombie, and he has to kill the zombie. And he takes out the zombie's license out of his wallet, and he says, I forgot the guy's name, Adam Smith. I'll always remember him. By the end of the episode, he's killed about 20 zombies, and there's no names, no one taking out any licenses. Life becomes cheap, and we see that humanity loses their humanity while also remaining human. And that is what the story is about. And I bring this up because we live in a time where there's so much death that we see. This week we witnessed yet another mass shooting. This time in a Catholic church. Children were killed in the pews during a mass, a prayer service marking the first day of school. Now try to imagine if something like this had happened before Columbine, before Sandy Hook, before Parkland, before the Tree of Life synagogue massacre. A story like this would have shaken a nation to its core. But today, it's just another headline, another story to scroll past until the next one. This would have been unthinkable even in 2010. Today, it's tragically routine. And it begs the question, if this keeps happening again and again with the same responses, the same failures, how do we keep going? How do we hold on to our compassion in a world that is filled with so much cruelty and loss? We live in an extraordinary moment in world history. The smartphone connects us to the entire world instantly like never before in the history of humanity. Today, we can see tragedy unfold in real time, raw and unfiltered. The students at Parkland, for example, were live streaming their own murders. The brutality floods our screens. The sheer volume of images and stories, they overwhelm us. And when you're bombarded with constant images of suffering, your mind actually protects you. Psychologists call it compassion fatigue. It's not that you don't care, it's that caring too much too often becomes unbearable. Your heart hardens, not because you're cruel, but because you're a human being. You're trying to protect yourself. Paul Slovic, who is a psychologist at the University of Oregon, he described a related phenomenon. He called it psychic numbing. He's found that our emotional circuitry is wired to care deeply about one person, one story, and one face. But as soon as numbers increase, 10, 50, 1,000, the compassion does not multiply. It actually decreases. Statistics don't move us. Our brains can't add compassion the way that a calculator adds numbers. Now think about the difference between hearing about 50 people killed in a bar shooting versus the picture of one child learning her name, hearing about her dreams. One story reaches us, a number washes over us. And yet the Torah calls us to resist that numbing of the heart. This month of Elul gives us a spiritual roadmap for how to reclaim our humanity through our hearts. One of the acronyms for Elul is God will circumcise your heart and the hearts of your children. It comes from Deuteronomy 36. What does it mean? It means Ramban explains, Nachmanides explains, that this verse points to a messianic age when humanity will be restored to the innocence of the Garden of Eden. In that world, the evil inclination will no longer tempt us. Our hearts will be softened. It'll be no problem to get to love and compassion. And with all respects to Ramban, that's a beautiful vision, but what do we do now? The Messiah is not here, so what do we do today? Now, our Parsha this week, Shoftim team, offers a surprising teaching on how to live between the headlines of loss. This week we read at the end of our Parsha one of the strangest rituals that's in the Torah. The Eglah Arufah, the unburdened heifer. And here it is. If someone is found murdered in a field, it's an unsolved murder. The investigation, no one could find the murderer. The elders of the nearest town must perform a ritual. They take a cow, a heifer that has never been yoked, never worked. They bring it to a valley. They break its neck and declare, "Our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it done." What I find very interesting about this strange story is where it is found. It's found between two chapters that begin with the words, Ki tetzei lemilchama, when you go out to war. When we hear about war, you hear about numbers, casualties, statistics, losses, gains. You don't hear about individuals who get lost in the tally. But right here, in between the wars, the Torah interrupts the story about one person, an anonymous person, an unsolved murder victim. It's as if the Torah is telling us, even in times of war, do not forget the value of one life. And just a few verses later, we get another reminder. When you besiege a city for many days, do not destroy its trees. For the tree is the man of the field to come. Is the tree a man of the field to come before you in the siege? Seforno, a medieval Italian commentator, states this is a rhetorical device. A tree, he says, is not your enemy. A tree cannot resist you. It cannot surrender. A tree sustains life. Even in war, you must not destroy needlessly. If the Torah commands us to spare the trees, how much more so should we have value for life? Now, we still might not be sold on this ritual yet. I get it. Why should the leaders of the town who had nothing to do with this crime, after this long, thorough investigation, why should they take responsibility? And better yet, why not get a collection from everyone to make a donation in this unsolved murder's name, the guy who was killed? The Torah says, no, money cannot replace a life. Instead, the community itself must stop, notice, and publicly proclaim this death mattered. This life cannot be ignored. I mean, the ancient Near East, the nearest town, they had a similar law. The nearest town had to pay a fine. They weren't concerned about what's called blood guilt, the blood soaking the ground. Biblical law, on the other hand, they make no provisions for compensating because it is impossible to compensate for a life. Dr. Jeffrey T. Gay writes in the JPS commentary, the Torah's concern is with the jeopardy in which the nation is placed by the unrequited blood that was shed in its midst. The individual unsolved murder matters not just to the family, but to the entire society. Allowing for blood to be so cheapened is not the society that the children of Israel were going to build in the Promised Land. Ibn Ezra, commenting on this, again, very strange story, he says the purpose is to create a culture where innocent blood is not ignored. A culture, he writes, that honors life. If you do what is right, he writes, innocent blood will not be spilled in your land because the reward of a mitzvah is another mitzvah, and the reward of a sin is another sin. In other words, how we treat even one anonymous victim shapes our whole society. If we allow blood to be cheapened, it poisons the land. If we honor life, we actually build a culture of life. Now, Mishnah Sanhedrin builds on this. In capital cases, before you were a witness, you had to be told that every person is like an entire world. And they taught about Cain and Abel, that when Cain kills Abel, it says, God says, the blood of your brothers cries out to me from the ground. The bloods of your brothers. His life, his descendants, his future is gone. Because murder is an ungodly act. It doesn't just cut off one life, but generations of potential. That's why I want to say the names of the two children lost this week. Harper Lillian Mosky, age 10, and Fletcher Merkel, age 8. Harper was just starting 5th grade. She loved sleepovers, makeup experiments gone wrong, and staying up too late watching movies with her friends. Her father's friend, Michael Burt, said his daughter has been telling him story after story about Harper's goofiness, her laughter, her friendship. He says he wants to help his daughter keep Harper's memory alive. Fletcher was only a 3rd grader, 8 years old. His father, Jesse, said, we will never hold him again, talk to him, play with him, or watch him grow into the wonderful young man he was becoming. He asked that people not focus on Fletcher's death, but on his life. Please remember Fletcher for the person he was, not the act that ended his life. We love you, Fletcher. You'll always be with us. These are the names. These are the lives. The Torah tells us, don't let them be reduced to numbers. We know the challenge. Compassion fatigue is real. Psychic numbing is real. Our screens expose us to so much death that our hearts cannot keep up. And we risk becoming like characters in a zombie apocalypse, starting with compassion, ending with numbing indifference. But the Torah says, resist the numbness. Circumcise your hearts. Remove the hardness. Remember the names. Hold the stories. This month of Elul is a time for you to soften your hearts. The rest of the year, you're focused on the forest, as you should, the big picture. But it's during this month when we look at the forest instead and see individual trees, that each person is created in the image of God. The Torah says that one unsolved murder stains the entire nation. We live in this time when death is counted, calculated, scrolled past, and then forgotten. But Judaism commands us, do not forget, speak the names, remember the stories, and most importantly, let your heart break. Because only with broken hearts can we rebuild a world worthy of our children. It doesn't mean we're not silent witnesses. We need stricter gun laws. We need a better mental health system. We have to beef up securities and institutions. But we must never forget why we are taking these actions. So in this month of Elul, may we resist the numbing pull of indifference. May we hear the cries of parents who will never again hold their children. And may we soften our hearts before God, before each other. Amen.